All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Common Council regular meeting of Tuesday, February 6th of 2024. Welcome to those here, and welcome also to those that are watching on the cable channels. With that, could we have a roll call, please?
Finkler?
Here.
Hammer?
Here.
Gray?
Present.
Motive?
Present.
Reed?
Here.
Rolke is excused. Steiner?
Here.
All present.
Okay, and if you would join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we have had notice of open meeting, and I would look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Motif to approve tonight's agenda. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. Correspondence and communications, is there anybody signed up to speak? Nobody? Okay. Anybody that wishes to speak that didn't have an opportunity to sign up? All right. Moving forward on to the consent agenda, which is approval of the Council and Committee of the Whole minutes of January 23rd, 2024. Approve the operator licenses for 2023 to 2025 licensing period, and approve the certified survey map for the Quick Trip.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Reed will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Motif and a second by Alder Reed to approve tonight's consent agenda. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First item under new business is to consider and take action on the tobacco license for Last Minute Vape. That's approving the application for the cigarette and tobacco products retail license. So I'd be looking for a motion to approve that.
Alder Finkler will move to approve.
Alder Gray seconds.
Okay, a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Gray to approve the tobacco license for Last Minute Vape. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Mayor, I'd just note that the applicant is here tonight and available to answer any questions the council has.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And next on the agenda of new business is to take action on the claims in the amount of $366,716.37.
Alder Gray moves to approve the claims in the amount of $366,716.37.
Alder Motif will second.
You have a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Motif to pay the claims. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Gray?
Aye.
Motive?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Steiner?
Aye.
Finkler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next on the agenda is report of city officers. So,
Just briefly, a couple of personnel-related items. Troy Kehoe started yesterday as our DPW superintendent. Troy's been with the city in a variety of roles for quite a while with the city. So excited for Troy to transition into that position. We will have the rec and aquatics assistant position interviews on Thursday of this week. And next week on Thursday as well are the utility director interviews for finalists for that position. A couple of other quick items of note. There's a housing event tomorrow in Madison that the mayor, Mike Kornman, who's our community and economic development director, and myself are going to attend. And I know that there's been a lot of concerns with LRS and the transition to garbage and recycling pickup. Staff is meeting with them on Thursday of this week to try and work through some of those concerns. I know it was there are a lot of interesting pieces in a conversion to a new provider, the holiday schedule, and the snowstorms that we had. But I think just better communication can try and alleviate some of those concerns in the future. So we'll be meeting with them on Thursday this week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So my thanks to Amy Roelke for running the council meeting in my absence, the last meeting. I had attended the Municipal Electric Utilities of Wisconsin Conference last month with updates on the electric industry and how that affects our electric utility along with the other municipal utilities, and the supply chain issues of materials. Electrical materials, as well as I know some other materials, but electrical materials, the lead times on those things are astronomical. There's some items that are at 72-week lead time. So job planning is obviously really critical for those guys as they go forward. I had a team meeting with Amtrak representatives and a Wisconsin DOT rep regarding the launch of a new additional Amtrak service between the Twin Cities and Chicago, and Columbus will be one of those stops. The exact launch date has not been released yet, so they will be keeping in touch with me on that. When they do, it'll be on a Saturday, and they'll be making a 10 to 15-minute stop at each community on that launch day. I did ask the representatives about existing rail service that is currently running through Columbus and was assured that this rail service will continue. The rail service is the Empire Builder service, and there's all the talk about, Madison having applied to Amtrak, and that would be the Hiawatha line. So, again, I was assured by them that the Empire Builder line will continue to run through Columbus. So, with that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Gray seconds.
I have a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Gray to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. I'm assuming because of how fast we ran through this, nobody really needs a break. So. Okay, we will move on to the Committee of the Whole meeting of Tuesday, February 6, 2024. And welcome to everybody again in the audience, and also that are watching on the cable channel. With that, could I have a roll call, please?
Finkler,
Here.
Hammer,
Here.
Gray,
Present.
Motif,
Present.
Reed. Here. Roelke is excused. Steiner.
Here.
Okay, and we have had notice of open meeting for this meeting tonight. And I would look for a motion now to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Gray moves to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Motif to approve, Finkler, sorry, to approve tonight's agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any citizens' comments for Committee of the Whole? None? Okay. So we will move on. Next on the agenda is item 5 is the different committee reports that you have. The commission minutes of the Cable Commission, the Library, Police and Fire Commission, and the Utilities. With that, then we will move on to item number 6, which is to discuss the IT options.
So as the memo and information demonstrated, the city noticed our current provider. There was a 60-day notice clause of which was enacted. There's a lot of concern about increased rates, lack of service, and I think just in general, a lack of confidence in their ability to resolve issues in a timely manner. Staff went out and solicited proposals for a new provider. Staff at this time is recommending to move forward with RIME. Their proposal was the most complete. They came in, met with staff, went through inventory of our current situation, both from a server firewall standpoint as well as looked at a lot of our hardware. I think the main benefits, so our current service, just to explain, we pay a monthly, considered a retainer, and then pay for every service call at 15-minute increments. And the analysis from a budget, from a 2023 standpoint, the RIME proposal going the 3-year rate with the leased equipment for firewall and servers is actually about a $3,500 a year savings based on what we paid in 2023 that doesn't take into account our current providers' increased rates for 2024. This is also an inclusive service where we aren't called per charge. As long as it's between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And we call, that's included in our monthly fee. There's 24/7 network monitoring service. It includes the security, cyber prevention, all kind of the key elements from a city, from a protection standpoint. We did, as a staff team, meet with them again today, included Lieutenant Ward from the police department with Pat, Stephanie, and myself, and staff feels very comfortable moving forward with the proposal from RIME. If there are any questions, obviously, or any revisions anyone wants to see, we can go back to RIME and work that out in the next few weeks before bringing this to hopefully to the council or on the 19th.
So anybody have any questions on this? So good to move forward? Yep. All right.
I also want to take the opportunity, they'll be working with us to develop a replacement plan. We're going to shoot for a 3-year, which is kind of the current best practices from a technology standpoint. There may be budgetary considerations that don't allow that to be a 3-year, but that'll be our initial goal.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is to discuss Fluid Quip Mechanicals' third driveway request. Pardon? If you would.
All right, thank you. So what we have before you here tonight is a request by the owner, and the owner is here tonight to answer any questions. So the applicant had filed a improved site plan for their site, and they're located on the intersection of Maple Avenue and Commercial Drive in the city. They are looking to make some significant site improvements to their site, including paving some of the gravel parking area, which is what the city has been advocating business owners to do for a while here. So they came in with a site plan, and one of the things that jumped out to us right away was they have over 300 feet of frontage on Commercial Drive, which is in our industrial park street, and they only have one driveway entrance into their entire site. So they were proposing on adding a second entrance to separate truck traffic from any traffic that might be visitor traffic or employee traffic, which seemed to make a lot of sense. And we've actually been working on the street project. We're rebuilding this road this year, and so we've been working with their engineer and the owner here to kind of coordinate that second drive that they wanted to add. As a result, they had approached us and asked for a kind of an out-only, just kind of a secondary entrance into their parking lot for their employees. And their engineer drew up this plan, and they aligned it with the driveway across the street, which obviously is good practice for engineering. Due to the fact that this frontage is as long as it is, and they're requesting this a smaller exit-only drive, and they're aligning it with the adjacent drive, we don't see any real issue with it. There's not a high volume of traffic on this roadway, and we think it probably makes sense for their operations and the location that they're in due to the length of the frontage being so large. So obviously, per the ordinance, they're not allowed a third driveway unless they come and petition the council. So we wrote a memo here, or he had advocated for and wrote a email here, and we included the site plan for consideration. So if there's any questions about the site plan or the driveway or anything, I can certainly handle that. If there's any questions for the owner, like I say, he's here to represent that change as well. So.
Okay, does anybody have any questions regarding this? Move forward. All right, very good. right, and then we move on to item number 8, which is to discuss the Aquatic Center Water Management Agreement with, is it CARCO?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can address this, and Amy Jo can obviously answer any additional questions as well. Carico is, I've often looked for other companies to competitively bid them. They're really good at what they do. If you've ran a pool, municipal pool, you've worked with Carico Aquatic Resources. They manage almost every, or work with every community in the state that runs a municipal pool. It's a standard contract, provides the chemicals. They provide a lot of technical resources and assistance to the staff as well.
Got it.
So just, we would be looking forward, or looking just to renew the contract, or moving that forward to remove the contract?
Correct.
Right. Any further discussion on this item? Move it forward. Just bear with me as I keep notes. Okay, next on the agenda is to discuss the CHLPC ordinance amendment. So,
This follows the last meeting. Attorney Johnson has drafted what the ordinance in front of you that is basically creates an appeal process for this ordinance, and we felt that was the direction provided at the last meeting. I think the appropriate next step, should council be comfortable with this, is forwarding it to the Plan Commission for their review and input.
And just to follow up with what Matt said, the purpose of this ordinance is to basically take the last 7, 8 years of effort to change the existing ordinance and throw it into the trash and add this one paragraph to the ordinance that is already on the books. So this is a complete 180 from what we've been working on. This, I believe, HLPC has looked at this. I believe that Jason Tisch has looked at this as well and put his thumbs up on it. And Matt is correct. This does not move to the council. This moves to the Plan Commission.
where they review and then hold a public hearing.
The
So-
Plan Commission is required to hold a public hearing because it's a zoning issue.
Yep.
And then make a recommendation to the council. It'll come back to you for final review.
Okay. Alder Gray.
I'm very much okay with this moving forward to Plan Commission. I don't think that the ordinance should have ever been reworked, in my opinion. We have an excellent ordinance, and everyone from the state agrees with that. So I am great with this minor amendment.
Are we good with?
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I did want to point out one thing just to make sure everybody's on the same page. The very last sentence of the ordinance requires a 2/3 vote to uphold an appeal. And that's 4 out of 6, which is what you would normally need anyway. The only significance there is that if there's a 3-3 tie that doesn't get broke by the mayor, that just fails. So that's the difference between the 2/3 and the simple majority.
Okay. All right, are we good with moving this forward then to Plan Commission?
Yes.
Okay. Again, please bear with me as I make notes for myself. Okay, and then on to item number 10, which is to discuss citizens' right to address the council ordinance.
Following the discussion at the last meeting, I asked Attorney Johnson to draft an ordinance of what our current, that best aligns with what our current practice of addressing public comments is. I know that Paul's available to answer questions, clarify anything, but this was really put on as an opportunity for the council to discuss how to move forward with public input at meetings.
And my 2 cents on this topic is that the council has not been following the terms of its ordinance forever. So what I did is I tried to draft this along the line of what has been customary. And going through the code, I found that there's absolutely no language at all on what to do with written communications. So that's why I added that section. And this is first draft for your consideration and perhaps to raise questions that you might have, and it's not intended to be final unless you want it to be.
Okay, would anybody have anything they'd like to say in regards to this? Alder Reed.
Oh, thank you. My first question is on section B of 2-51, where it says, if the presiding officer decides that the comments are not relevant or are abusive. While I do want to mitigate abusive comments, I'm questioning the not relative. I don't want to absolutely require everything to be in full alignment with what is on the agenda. I feel like it's such a useful and helpful forum for us to get feedback from the general public, even though some of the topics are not what we were or could look at for the evening.
And thank you for bringing that up, because that language is in your ordinance right now. I think that it raises some significant First Amendment rights if somebody wants to get up and speak on something that's off topic. So my suggestion would be to, well, I left it in there just because I left it in there. I would probably lean toward taking that sentence out if it was me, but at the same time, I think that the presiding officer does need some ability to stop somebody if they're completely out of line. Where that line is, I do not know, and you won't know till you get there. But if somebody wants to speak on a topic that isn't on the agenda for the night, there should be no problem or prohibition on that. But if somebody starts having profanity-laced statements that it's not going anywhere and they need to be removed by the chief or something like that, that is something that needs to be provided for. And maybe not even in the ordinance, but it's going to happen anyway. So that is the one area that is a little tricky for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Alder Finkel.
No, it's okay. I'm being patient. So I love the fact that it was removed, that you are requiring it to be on the agenda to speak. I'm so happy that that's happened. One question though I have is, why is the part removed about staying after and being available for citizens? Is there a reason why that was removed? I remember in.
Well, the current ordinance says that if someone wants to speak on a non-agenda item, that is done when the meeting is over and the cameras are off.
Right.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me either,
Correct.
so that's what I've taken out.
Okay. Would there be any objections to rewording that to still making sure the alders are available if there is any citizens that are here that want to talk, that it's like removing the part of it not being on the agenda, but still leaving it in there that alders are to stick around in case citizens would like to talk to them?
Well, remember, this whole ordinance is dealing with what is now going to be number 5 on your agenda for the evening. You are always welcome to stick around.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you to ever go home.
Well, right.
You always,
But I'm
you
thinking-
always move to adjourn first.
But I'm thinking the opposite. I'm thinking the opposite that I want to make sure doesn't happen is an alder leaves when somebody wants to talk to them. I don't know if that's ever been a problem, but I just wanted to bring that up. You know what I mean? Because it could go either way.
Well, yeah, this whole ordinance is designed for the public comment part of the meeting itself.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean, once the meeting is adjourned.
Yes, you're on
I
your
mean,
own.
you can't, you're on.
Then you're on your own.
Exactly,
Okay.
You're on your
Exactly.
own.
And that's the only reason why it was in there before was off top. Okay.
Right, and this is also intended to cover both the public comment at council and the public comment at committee of the whole.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Alder Gray.
So my biggest issue is the flow of meetings and doing things timely. And also limiting people automatically, like having the automatic 3-minute time limit, I'm not super awesome with. And also allowing people to speak on off-topic things during a meeting, I'm also not super comfortable with. I think they should remain separate. I think there should be like a X amount of time either before or in between meetings for off-topic citizen comments. I think the meetings themselves should flow, should remain on topic, and we should only have a time limit if the chair of the meeting decides there is a time, there's one necessary like we have in ordinance now. Because sometimes a time limit is completely unnecessary. There's one person speaking, they can speak for 5-10 minutes, it's not a big deal. We don't need an automatic time limit.
Alder Moore.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I have one really easy one. You have number 3 listed twice. It should be a 4 for effective date.
Oh,
And then, yep. And then I would like to rebuff, the way I read it is 3 minutes is what's given as a general rule, but the presiding officer can choose to let someone speak longer if appropriate, correct?
The way it's worded at this draft is the council would need to say, okay, 3 minutes is out the door, it's 5 tonight, or something like that. It's not, if you wanted to make it, the presiding officer can decide, that's okay with me. But I set it up because the last few meetings I've actually seen a stopwatch up there, so the last few meetings have been 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. I don't particularly care, but to Ian's point is that you also don't want somebody up there for 25 minutes without a way to get him to stop. So, I mean, that's.
The majority of the
other
time, people actually finish within that 3 minutes.
Right.
It's actually, watching in the past, it's been like 2 minutes and 30 seconds for what an average is. So-
Right, the way we have it currently is the presiding officer can establish a time limit if necessary, and if the person is going off too long, the presiding officer can interrupt and ask them to be more concise. I don't think an automatic time limit is necessary, because most nights we have 1, 2, or like tonight, 0 people.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't think an automatic time limit is the right way, and we haven't had that until the past year. We have never had an automatic time limit unless the presiding officer imposed a time limit.
Alder Finkler.
I agree to removing the time limit. I also remember from my league training, if I'm remembering correctly, that they even advise in that training that you speak if there is a limit at the meeting at the time.
Yeah.
And I really worry about it limiting us, to 3 minutes. So I agree with that. I do not agree with adding back in that you have to stay on agenda. For the same points that Alder Reed made, I do want to hear the comments from the citizens at any point in time, at any agenda item, as long as it is respectful and as long as, they're within any limits that are set there. I haven't seen a problem yet with it, and I would like that to not be limited.
Alder Steiner.
Yeah, I'll throw my sense in here. I have no problem with most of this. It's totally fine. We'd have to have some limitations on what does come through here and some authority to stop people when we need to. As far as what the topics are that citizens want to bring to our attention, I think that should be open. I don't think we should have limits on just agenda items because some people can't make it to every meeting. They want to express something openly to the public, to us, and it should be available to them. It's just, it also limits the ability to free speech and opening communications with elected officials. As far as, you know, the time limits, you could have a minimum up to a certain point and have, you know, the presiding officer determine what it is, just so you're not limiting people from speaking at all, saying, oh, you got 30 seconds, you're good. It's like you could say, you can have 3 minutes. Otherwise, you know, if we want it, we'll let you go on farther if necessary. But otherwise, announcing beforehand, it's like, we got a lot of people, then you're going to be limited to 3 minutes. That's fine, too. I mean, it's totally relevant, but I don't think we should limit what people can say. If they want to say something nonsensical, let them say it, and then we'll move on.
Okay. Alder Gray?
And I wasn't saying we should limit what people can say. I was saying it should be separate from the meeting. It shouldn't be a part of a meeting if it's not on the agenda. That's just standard practice, that it shouldn't be part of a meeting if it's not on the agenda. It should be separate. We can have a separate open discussion with residents that is completely non-topical. That's acceptable. But having people speak of non-agenda items during a public meeting, we need to actually get business done. So if we allow that, we can have instances where we are just going for 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes over and over all night. We have had times where there's been tons of people here. We could get nothing done if this is how we set it up. It should be a separate section where they can speak openly. And maybe it should even be more discussion, and it's not just people speaking. Maybe we should be able to actually talk back and forth during a non-agenda, non-item, because we can't actually talk to them during that. And if it's not on an agenda, then nobody's prepared to talk about it. Maybe it should be more of an open forum, separate from the meetings, but I still think meetings should be about the agenda at hand.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. I really do prefer to have a time limit, possibly of 3 to 5 minutes. I really don't want to set us up for having multiple 10, 20 minutes possible diatribes. As far as, being on topic on the agenda, we really have the option to choose for ourselves what we want to include. The only thing we can't do is to make any decisions on anything not on the agenda. But we are perfectly free to let the people present what is on their minds.
Alder Finkler?
First, let me make my comment so then I don't forget that, and then I have a question. First comment is, as elected officials, we are elected to listen to our constituents, and I feel like I have heard a lot of complaints from many people in Columbus that they don't feel like they're heard from their alders. They don't get email responses back. They're ignored. I feel like allowing them to speak to any agenda item and come up here, we can't just not answer an email. Like if they're not hearing back from their alder, they should be able to come up and speak and be heard. I guess that's just the point that I have. And then next is the question, why, and I've wondered this for a long time now, why are we not allowed to talk to citizens during citizen comment? I don't see that in the ordinance.
Technically, you are. Trina has it right. You can't make any decisions, you can't make any motions, and you can't take any action. You are allowed to have a back and forth with somebody who's speaking if you wish. It's generally not a tremendously great idea, because then it you don't know where it's going.
In
Right.
current ordinance, that's not how it reads, actually.
Right, well, currently that's
In
probably.
current ordinance, we are not allowed to, the presiding officer is allowed to, and the presiding officer is allowed to grant us permission to do so. Current ordinance, no, we are not allowed to communicate with citizens during citizens' comment.
Well, as I
If I'm-
said, we haven't followed this ordinance forever, so.
Right.
If I may interject, we've got a lot of opinions on this. Nothing says that we have to move this forward tonight.
Oh, no.
And, I think it would behoove us to, each of us to take this back with us, look it over, and really mull over our questions and all, and then we can bring it back again for the February 19th COW to further discuss. That would be my recommendation. So, just a minute, Alder Gray.
But
Oh, my
what
Lord.
Alder Finkler brought up is a really good point. Like, currently, we are not allowed to discuss or have any back and forth with citizens during citizens' comments. And I think that is something that we should look at, because I think there are times where it would help to at least talk to them or clarify something or understand. So I think that is a really big point. But I do also still think that would be better served as a separate, like we start at 6:15 and open citizen dialogue starts at 6:15, then the actual meeting starts at 6:30. And I still think it should be separate from. I think our meetings should still flow appropriately and remain on topic. But I do believe there is a place for this and that it should be there, but it should be separate from our actual meetings so we can conduct business.
And this is something also that, as a council, we could decide to hold listening sessions. And that's strictly what it is listening sessions.
A listening session
So,
before every meeting.
Well, or on, yeah, I mean, it could be before every meeting, depending on who, schedule of people that can make it. Or, there could be a separate night in a more informal atmosphere too. So, but again, let's take this, do you have something further to say?
Yeah,
I think?
And now I forgot what I was gonna say, but, it actually is Alder's responsibility, according to the League of Municipalities, to hold town halls. I argue, though, that I do not want it limited to off-air, only people present. I don't like that. I'm okay with it being a different agenda item, and you can have citizen comments if it's not part of the agenda, but I'm not okay with it being like, we're just gonna push you off after the meeting and you're not on camera, because then we're not helping my problem that I already expressed of if citizens cannot get a hold of their alders because they're not responsive through email, I feel like that needs to be then the question asked in front of everybody. I mean, I don't know. So I'm okay with it being two separate agenda items. I just don't want it pushed off of the agenda.
Attorney Johnson.
The more likely topic that you have that is somebody wanting to speak that is not on the agenda. The examples that I had in my head were Melanie Litchfield when she used to come in and promote her horse fairs. That's never on the agenda. She would take 3 or 4 minutes of council time and announce the upcoming event. That was all great. Chief's drug take-back day is pretty common. Amy Jo, the Easter egg hunt, things like that. And then the other one is somebody running for office who wants to come in and introduce themselves. Those are the things that are normally off topic. The event that we had at the last meeting that was thank you, completely atypical. But that's the kind of thing that is more likely to happen, is that somebody wants to take 3 minutes, 5 minutes, stand at the podium and announce something. That's the more common thing that you should be thinking about.
Which again, I think there's a lot to discuss, and I really think we should just all go home, read it over, and then also and then maybe we can discuss further on the 19th now to come to a better understanding of everything. So Work in progress, yes. Yeah. All right. Moving on is the discussion of the ATV, UTV ordinance sunset clause. You have the original ordinance. The issue now, this body does not have to, even though it was a consensus that you go to a referendum, you don't have to go to referendum if you choose not, if this body chooses not to. If you choose just to lift or to remove the sunset clause and just keep the ordinance in place, we can do that. We've heard it, several times mentioned that, as a body, you can legislate what you want to do, and, if it becomes an issue, that we will, then we can address it. Before I open it up to comments, though, I would like to have Chief Weiner come up and just give his feedback on the ordinance.
Good evening. The mayor just asked me to talk briefly about our department's experiences with the UTV since it's been enacted, the ordinance allowing them to be on the streets here. And I will say that it's been minimal issues. I guess that's the easiest thing to say. A lot less than what I anticipated, a lot less issues, occasional issues, nothing that I'm actually even concerned about. I mean, if we continue on at the rate we're at, I mean, it's basically a non-issue in my mind. I had some concerns early on with the onset, and they were quickly put to rest. Pete Skalitsky has reached out to me a couple of times since the ordinance took place, wanting to know about concerns so we could pass it on to the riding groups, and I appreciate that. I think that benefits everybody. He's got an interest in doing this right, and I think it's moving forward very positively. We've made a handful of stops, contacts, and citations. Nothing abnormal. Occasional would probably be a stretch. I mean, I'd say more of a handful or two of stops and citations. Occasional unhappy UTV rider that gets a citation, but we have the same with motorists as well. So I don't differentiate that anyway. And obviously it's up to you, but I would not have a concern as the police chief, the sunset clause going away, and we just move forward. And if issues raise their head, they can be addressed again at another time, in another way.
Okay, Alder Gray, you had your light on first.
I think, actually.
I did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all
Okay.
right. Thank you, Alder Gray. I just have, Chief, thank you very much. You were going to be the first person I was going to ask when my light went on. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is parking lots in parks. So one of the feedback that I got on the ordinance is how come an ATV cannot park at, let's say, a baseball game or a softball game at a park when a car can? And I think that's something that I wanted to bring up, along with saying I want the sunset clause just removed altogether because there has been no major issues. But I'm wondering if we can amend it to allow, families to go to their baseball game in their ATV.
I mean, that's entirely within your realm. Maybe the concern is about vehicles or UTVs going through the park and with all the pedestrian traffic. I'm not sure why that was included. I mean, we really we've had one or two that we've had to shoo out of the parks. Not a big deal. I don't think we've been written citations for that. But, I mean, I don't have an opinion either way. Obviously, we'll respond to whatever is in effect ordinance-wise at the time, but I really never gave that a thought, to be honest with you.
And just, it's also not on our agenda and not part of our discussion, but I think it is a relevant discussion for the future.
What is? Oh.
We're only talking about the sunset clause.
Right. Any other discussion regarding?
So we told the public that we would be going to referendum. That is the expectation of all of the citizens of Columbus, whether they are for or against this. I am super happy that it has been way less impactful and a lot better than I had in my mind for the city of Columbus. That makes me very happy. But I still don't think it is right for us to do this without going to referendum like we told all the citizens we were going to do. We should still go to referendum. The referendum is solely advisory. The council can still decide whichever way they want it to happen after, but we should still go to referendum. We told our citizens we were going to referendum. It would be a mistake not to.
Alder Motive.
I have to say I agree with Alder Gray. We did say that we would go back to referendum. We have missed the deadline for the April ballot, so we could not put an advisory question in April, but we could for November. And we could put an extension on the ordinance so that it stays the same and it can continue until the November election.
Alder Finkler.
Couple things. I think going to referendum is a waste of time and conversation, and I just don't think it's necessary. The police chief has no issues. I haven't had any constituents reach out to me about issues with ATVs, only asking to have, for the parks thing that I mentioned before. And I just think it's a waste of time. I don't know why we want to add more steps to this process when there hasn't been any issues. The other thing I also want to note, and this is a question for Attorney Johnson, I believe changes that have happened, what allows you to go to referendum in this past year, would not even let this go to referendum. But that needs to be dug into further. I remember hearing, and I don't know if it was during budgeting or when it was, I haven't had a chance to dig into it myself, but I know there's been changes to what's allowed to go to referendum, and I'm almost certain that this isn't allowed. And I think it has something to do with more funding coming to cities, and they don't want any funding or any money that's coming to cities used on referendums that don't have like a purpose, like money-wise and stuff like that, how it's spent. But don't quote me, it's something somebody needs to look into. I just, across the board, think it's a waste of time to do a referendum.
Do you have your, I'm sorry, Alder
Ian
Spencer.
was right first.
I understand the sentiment, but you also champion wanting to hear from citizens, and I can 100% say that I still hear from citizens that would rather ATVs and UTVs not be on the streets. You'll still hear from citizens that would prefer them to be on streets. The citizens will reach out to the alder that is sympathetic to them, whether or not they're in their district. That's how things work. It's how things have always worked. I heard from 3 today alone that don't want ATVs and UTVs. So for us to say we're going to referendum and then not go to referendum is the exact opposite of everything you champion, pretending you want to hear from citizens.
I never said to go to referendum.
Okay, Alder Stein.
Yeah, so I'm going to say what I said last time, and I think that a referendum is kind of a silly waste of resources. And as you stated, it's like we don't have to actually follow whatever the referendum does. It's advisory, so it kind of makes it completely pointless to go through the effort of putting in a referendum if we still have the option of just completely ignoring it altogether. And as you've also stated several times, that our job is to legislate, and this is a legislative thing that we're supposed to do. We're hired and elected to make these decisions, and an ATV, UTV is just another vehicle on the road. It's no different than a motorcycle or a scooter or a bicycle or a small car. A little smart car is about the same size as a UTV, if not smaller. It's just another vehicle. It just doesn't go very fast as opposed to other vehicles. It's actually just as safe, if not safer, than some other vehicles. I don't see much of an issue, and it hasn't been an issue for the past 2 years, so it's like, why are we going through the effort of trying to say, hey, does everyone agree or not agree? Our responsibility is to do this and do this practically. And if it doesn't fall through, it'll come back again in a couple of years anyway. We have the responsibility to allow people to do what they want with the machines they want, and we can provide the guidelines to make it safe. That's what these ordinances are supposed to do. Let's just do that and not constantly go back and forth with, does everyone agree, does everyone not agree? Because that kind of eliminates our purpose or it eliminates their purpose, one way or the other.
Alder Reed.
Thank you. I'm leaning towards going with Modo's proposal. of extending the sunset clause so everyone can continue to use their vehicles throughout the season. Maybe extending it through December or January possibly. And I just feel that we should go through with the promised referendum. It probably won't be that useful, but I do want to try and be honest with the process.
Well, from what it is tonight with those present, it is the majority of people that would prefer to see this move to a referendum. If that's the case, that it would be on the November referendum, and I would just recommend that we take the sunset clause so, yeah, December 31st, the end of the year.
I don't mean to cut this off, but according to the League of Municipalities, until everybody is done discussing, you can't just choose to end a discussion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, thank you. I do not think we should be hopping straight to a referendum. For starters, we don't even know if we legally can do a referendum. Second, I don't know how many times I have heard council members up here say, we're gonna have a switch in council, so we should either wait to make a decision until the switch in council, or don't make any decisions for the future councils. Like, why is a referendum that the previous council promised expected to be enforced by this council? Granted, I get a lot of you were on that council, but I feel it's just such a waste of time and energy, and there has been no issues. We have an expert standing right in front of you, Chief Weiner, okay? He is our police chief. Why do you have a problem with this if our police chief doesn't have a problem with it? I don't understand. And I do get comments from people for and against. And let me tell you, the people against it, they only care more about, oh, are you going to do the referendum because you said you did. Really, you don't care about the time and energy and taxpayer dollars to go into that process and all these conversations. I just think, man, we have better things to worry about than a referendum for something that has caused no issues, and no other municipality around us has gone through this rigmarole. They passed it the first time. They don't even put sunset clauses into these ordinances. Why is Columbus being so difficult about it? We have the power to bring this back at any point in time and change it if we don't like it. Why do we keep doing this power trip of, oh, we'll give you a little bit, we'll give you a little bit more, and then we'll think about it later? If there's a problem, we can literally bring it back at any point in time and change it. Why use our time and energy to just deal with this right now?
I'll give my personal opinion on this. I've never seen an issue with having the ATV, UTV. You went through the first referendum, and it was, I forget how many votes were for, how many votes were against. But, well, regardless of what the difference is, the difference, the majority were in favor. So, with that being the case, and that this body has the option in future, if it does become issues, to rescind the ordinance, my personal opinion is moving forward to an ordinance is not necessary. I personally would like to see us just remove the sunset clause and continue on, and, as with anything, if it becomes an issue, we address it if it becomes a serious issue. All right, Alder Gray.
I personally think we've talked this one as much as we can. It'll advance to the next regularly scheduled meeting, and we will decide if it goes to referendum or if it doesn't.
Okay.
Just a couple of clarifying questions about some of the discussion. Staff will look into and work with Attorney Johnson on if there are changes in state law that have limited advisory referendums in any way. The other question I have is, the discussion of parks and what is there anything that you want to see drafted in terms of addressing both parking within a park and ATV, UTV allowance in our parks?
I think we should focus on Sunset and then look at that later.
Completely fair, just wanted to make sure we're prepared for the next discussion.
I think we should
Alderman.
streamline it. I mean, we heard from the police chief tonight that he doesn't have any concerns with ATVs parking in a parking lot in a park. We don't let cars drive on the grass. We won't let ATVs drive on the grass. I think it's going to be a minimal enough update. I don't know why, again, we would waste our time reviewing this ordinance again when we can just review it once and be in a good spot and move on to more important things that we have to go, like economic growth, public safety building. We have so much bigger things to worry about.
Largely because it would have to go to a council, committee of the whole meeting anyway, because that is our procedure.
So send it there. We have till May 1st, right? So why cannot this come back to committee of the whole next time with the parking, the parks thing on it and removing of the sunset clause? And then that would get decided there and then we go to council for a vote. Why can't that happen to streamline the process? Do we like to see ordinances multiple times in a row in the same couple months? I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Just-
Attorney John.
Just a point of remembrance, the ordinance that you have in place right now was also an ordinance that went through many revisions and modifications as it was being approved the first time around, and what you ended up with is a recitation of the state law. No more, no less. And I believe that is, yes, that is correct. So you adopted the state law with whatever it said and whatever it didn't say. So anything parks or parking, things of that nature are not addressed in this one. Certainly can be because the municipality has the ability to adjust the state law in certain respects. But you have the state law right now.
Okay. So are we looking to bring this to actual council, or are we looking to bring this back to next COW for further discussion? Alder Gray.
I don't think there's a need to bring it back to a cow for the sunset clause. If we want to alter the ordinance itself, I think that is a discussion for the cow another day, because we were not supposed to be talking about parking or anything of that nature.
Right.
But this is on the committee of the whole. Our standard procedure is to move it to the next regularly scheduled council meeting, and that is exactly what we should do.
Okay. Okay, so, and that was, so it's bringing to the next council meeting to approve the revision of the sunset clause in order to bring to referendum for the November election cycle, so.
And I think we should have an extension to the sunset clause. If it
Yes,
goes
the
to
extension of December 31st of 2024.
I would like that agenda item to not be specific to a referendum, because this agenda item is not. I think if somebody wants to make a motion on that at city council, it can be voted on, but what I don't want is I do not want the thought of that is our option, that's what we're going into city council to vote on. I think it needs to go there, and if somebody wants to make a motion to remove the sunset clause, then we need to vote on it. Somebody wants to make the motion for a referendum, then we vote on it. I don't want it to go to council specific to a referendum. And then I also would like added then to the next cow, so we can see this ordinance again, to consider the parks, parking lot in parks conversation.
I understand the comments, but I mean, we have a 3-2 to wanting a refer.
You're part of cow?
I'm a presiding officer though tonight too, so.
Well, then I think I want to come back to Cow and we have everybody here. Like, we can't just like, I just,
No, it is.
What
a 3-3.
happens if-
The standard procedure is to move to the regularly scheduled council meeting.
Right,
That is what we're
with this
supposed to do,
same
so let's
agenda
keep
item?
going. Yes.
okay, well, that's not what I heard. What I heard is it's going to move specific to a referendum. If it moves, I'm asking it to move as this agenda item on Cow. That is not narrow-minded to a referendum. That leaves it open for who makes the motion, which is how it should be.
Okay.
The agenda item for the council meeting should be consider and take action on the ATV, UTV ordinance sunset clause,
Yes.
Thank you.
because that's what it says here.
Yes, and that's what I've been arguing for.
So whatever
Nobody said
happens,
that wasn't going to be what it was.
whatever happens at the next meeting is whatever will happen at the
Okay,
next
all
meeting.
right.
Thank you.
So a misunderstanding on my behalf then. So, Matt,
Is this wrapped up?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to throw something out, and it's for discussion, and it's probably not topical, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I think we all need to understand that it's okay to have difference of opinion. It's how we treat each other with a difference of opinion, that we treat each other with respect, and that we present an example to the community and city staff of how to interact. It's healthy to have debate, healthy to have difference of opinion. I just want to make sure we're treating everybody with respect.
yeah, thank you, appreciate that. Okay, so we are moving this forward in regards to the, either removing, so is it removing the sunset clause or adjusting the sunset clause? Just I want to
Well,
make sure we get clarification.
It can be, when you get to the council, you'll basically have the opportunity for somebody to make a motion to either remove the sunset clause, period, to extend the sunset clause for however long.
Okay.
Or to submit this back to a referendum. That is an option that you have.
Okay, all right. Very good.
Those will be your three choices in some way, shape, or form.
All right. Thank you. And moving on to item number 12, which is to discuss the public safety building RFP. So Matt, if you would.
Yeah, this is a draft, an inherited draft that I've updated with dates. Just looking for any comments or direction to move forward with publication. And I apologize, in the conversion from Word to Adobe, some of the headings didn't get to the next page and are on the bottom of the document. So, sorry for that.
And this is budgeted for. So,
Matt, on the bottom of page 15, there was one Sauk County that got in there.
Missed by multiple people.
Yes.
Yep, I got it. Thank you.
oh, I'm sorry. Alder Finkler.
No, I just wanted to say thank you, Matt, for putting this together. I really appreciate it. It's thorough and I just wanted to say thank you for putting it together and having us get that out there. I just wanted to confirm, you did work with the fire chief and the police chief on this, right?
To be honest, I have not. I don't know if they were included in any of the process prior to my arrival in developing this. It was set to be sent out, is my understanding, with dates, and all I've updated on this are the dates that you see with a publication of this Friday as kind of the kickoff process.
So past city administrator Lisa Wilson did confer with the both of you? Okay,
interacted with ideas and deleted and added some things here and there, so yes, there was that dialogue.
okay, very good.
Perfect,
right.
I'm good.
Alder Gray.
Is this looking at any spaces aside from the currently owned city properties?
It does not, but it talks about obviously, an analysis of the feasibility of those sites would determine, in my mind, whether those sites are large enough, whether there's problems with them, and would then force the discussion of, is there another site that the city needs to look at, and what is the right size of that? What are the characteristics of that site that is, undetermined at this point?
Right. The last time we discussed this, I believe it was almost a full consensus that it wouldn't be limited to only city-owned facilities, so that we could make sure that we were looking at the best area, not just the easiest spot to put it.
Yeah, and that's my understanding when it was being drafted.
And that's not what this is what I'm saying.
Oh,
Right.
So I'll just share that in past lives, that's led to problems of identifying a site that is not city-owned. I think what would be better is to identify the characteristics you'd want in a perfect site, but that, saying this plot of land creates a negotiation challenge for a municipality to move forward on.
Right, so then should we even be including the plots that we have available, or should we just be looking at what's feasible and see if one of ours could work? I'm afraid that we are pigeonholing ourselves into putting a fire station where we already own property that may or may not be the best location. This is just, it's not exploring whether or not it's the best location, it's exploring whether or not it's suitable. That's a completely different thing than whether or not it's the best location.
I don't disagree with anything you say, and I think, to me, it would make sense to evaluate the sites that the city currently controls for their viability, but then also maybe we need to add language in about what an ideal site is, and even a report on what the limitations of the currently owned properties present.
Right, yeah, I don't know, for me, if we're just evaluating city-owned sites, we should be evaluating them for what their ideal uses are, not for a specific building to see which one of our already owned sites it would best fit on. If we're looking at where public works, where this facility should be, it should be open to absolutely anywhere. Where is the best locations? What are the parameters? What amount of land? What do we really need for this? If one of our positions work for it, that's great, but we shouldn't be pigeonholing our properties for it to be one. If we want to do a study with our properties, it should be holistic of what are the best uses? What is the best use for this property on James Street? What's the best use for this property on Tower Street? That should be separate from the public facility. We should be looking at the public facility as where is the best location and what does it need for it to be built properly? Not can we squeeze it in here?
if you look at the paragraph above 3.2, it does say the city of Columbus owns 2 parcels of land in which should be considered as part of the study. the viability of either parcel for the location of the public safety facility will be part of the study, along with recommendations for sites elsewhere within the city limits or adjacent to the city. So it is, it's taking,
It's somewhat, but
well,
not really.
well, I mean, it's a viability study of
But
areas that would be.
I also feel that with what Ian is saying, it would change who you're looking to do the work drastically, because most of the firms that are currently on the list are those that would be in the public safety building realm. They build fire stations, they build police stations, that's what they do. If you're looking to have an analysis completed on what is the best use of a site, that changes more into a land planning, development. I mean, there are a lot of different factors that come in, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's a different
completely
idea
different.
than what is proposed here.
Yeah, and it's more of what we were speaking about before. You just weren't here for that, so it's not on you at all. That's what I feel the council was looking for back then, and I just feel like this isn't what we were looking for. That's my only.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I definitely have just a general dislike of spending money on studies. It's so expensive, and, there isn't a concrete thing. It's just ideas. I don't know how we would go about looking at non-city-owned properties. I wish we had done this study a year ago when we had more options. But I'm just wondering what route could be taken to look at other properties that would be a possible ideal match if the city-owned ones aren't currently quite lining up.
Alder Finkler?
A couple comments. So this RFP, I know it will cross paths with a different RFP that was posted, but it doesn't list all the city-owned property. It's missing the Dingy property. Not that I think it's a good spot, but I think if you're gonna be fair, we should be fair and list all the city property. I'm just not sure how that works with the already posted RFP on that. The other thing is I think to piggyback off of what Alder Reed was saying about doing studies, and we have spent a lot of money on studies, and I really worry about broadening that scope to how can we now use all the property we have. I mean, this specifically was supposed to be on public safety, and that was how I remember the original conversation. I think that if our property doesn't work for public safety, and the answer that comes out of this is we need to purchase other property, then we can go into what is other use for the property that isn't good for public safety. But I think this being specific to a public safety building, I think it should stick to that, so we have the experts on that, and we're not getting a study created by somebody that may know something about a public safety building, and it's another study we throw away.
Alder Moe?
Matt had his hand up. He can go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
I would just add in that in the short time I've been in the city, I haven't ran across anyone that I've talked to that doesn't feel that the public safety building is a significant priority for the city. And for that, I'm confident that proposals coming back to this will help move the city towards the next step as it's related to the public safety building. It may identify one of these sites as the right site. It may rule out these sites, which would then allow the city to determine how it moves forward with those two sites, but that we would still come away knowing the size of land we need, a preliminary budget, a preliminary size of a building to start those next steps in the realization of a public safety building, which I think is a critical next step for the city.
Alder Moe?
I guess mine is kind of a question. Is this going to allow us to be able to look at possibly even a reorganization of buildings, for lack of a better word. I mean, we may have some buildings that are underutilized and could be rebuilt. And then they're city-owned. Would that be included?
There's no language currently included in that. It doesn't mean that it couldn't. I'm also, outside of the available land, I'm not sure that there's a great current fit with the city facility, even in being able to be renovated into the needs of a public safety building if we're looking at both co-locating fire and police.
Okay.
Alder Gray.
And, I mean, so really the only reason I would want to include specific city properties in it is if we were looking to get an opinion of what the best use of them were outside of a study. I personally just think we should be, if we're looking for a public safety building, it should be all inclusive. No city property should be listed, no property should be listed. It should be, what do we need for a public safety building? And of course, we have these things available. They can look at it and be like, hey, this is a perfect spot, or it's not. But we shouldn't be specifically saying, these are the two properties you have to work with. Maybe you can find something else. Just what do we need? What do we actually need for a public safety building? Because I think that's a large issue. Our roadmap plan has a public safety building that doesn't really fit the needs of Columbus. Any realistic person can see it wouldn't fit the needs of Columbus 60, 70 years from now. So we're going off of a plan that is completely useless, that is a larger facility than some Prairie has or will need in 50 years, that we shouldn't even be looking at. So we shouldn't be looking at specific properties for a specific thing. We should just be, what do we actually need? What land do we actually need? And that's it. Maybe one of our properties fit it. That's great. They can include that in their proposal that, hey, guess what? Your Tower Drive location would be perfect. It fits just well. Or the spot on James Street would be awesome. But I don't think we should be recommending these two properties over anything else. We should just be looking what we actually need and then find the property for it.
Alder Steiner.
I agree with Alder Gray there that we shouldn't be limiting ourselves to just what we have there and making it seem like this is the properties that we have available, that's all we want to utilize. We should just look at what we need and what the city needs as a general whole. Possibly these two will work, possibly they won't. If that's something that you put in the RFP, I've never written one, so I'm not really exactly sure. The other thing I wanted to see is if it'd be prudent to also add anything towards the DPW, because that facility also needs a massive upgrading. And if it's just a study, let's wrap it all into one as opposed to just public safety, because Public Works is in not a very good location as it is and requires a new facility as well. It's not something we're going to do tomorrow, but I mean, maybe it's just prudent to have it on the study as well.
Adam Steiner, or Alder Steiner, I think that's a great point, is that if you found the perfect site, right, it would make sense, there'd be some advantage to co-locating, even if there is a phased element to construction. You do one at one point and one at the future, there'd be some good synergies potentially in having them co-located.
Alder Finkler.
Would it be, and I just have a question for you, Matt, would it be the same group of people you speak to, the vendors for this specific RFP talking about public safety and responding, would it be the same people that would be able to respond if we added DPW? The project manager hat in me is like scope creep, scope creep, scope creep, so we need to be careful where we're going with this, because it could blossom into something that is useless to us. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea to group them together, I just want to make sure it makes sense for who would be responding to the proposal.
I think Alder Reed had a really good point earlier about plans that sit on shelves, and I think we'd have to be cognizant that anything we're doing from a DPW standpoint is likely going to sit on a shelf for a little while. It may be good to have the thought of a site. I actually think that the firms responding, whether it's a public safety building or a DPW facility, are going to be architectural firms. And it may be separate divisions of people, but it's the same company, and I don't know that it's going to add or subtract companies of who we would send it to. But I do think, you know, it might be we want 90% of your effort on a public safety building and 10% of your effort towards the thought of looking at a site and what a future DPW facility and even some of the future benefits of location. And one of the things that I think of, depending on growth and future projection, like mechanics. A DPW facility, at some point, the city may get to a point where it has an in-house mechanic. Having those co-located and being able to service the public safety equipment at the DPW facility, I mean, that's just one. Fuel tanks, there's other potential savings and synergies that you can have on a co-located site. But again, I think it'd be in the city's best financial interest to look at a heavy focus on the public safety at this point, knowing that obviously we have a DPW facility concern as well, but just knowing financially that's probably going to be a bit more in the future.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we want Matt to just kind of redo the RFP a bit to remove the city-owned properties from that, and that they just come back with what is the best viable needs. Alderman.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't trying to remove the city-owned properties, just to be more inclusive of the city as a whole. That's all.
Okay, all right.
And I forgot one thing. I couldn't quite tell in the RFP if we're just going to get back one answer. So for example, let me step back and read this. So the City of Columbus is seeking a feasibility study with a space needs analysis to assist and guide officials determining the best course of action regarding renovations. Oh wait, sorry, wrong spot.
Where are you reading from so we can follow with you, please?
Just one second, let me find the right spot. Under goals and objectives, under 3.2. The project will include an analysis of potential site locations where a new facility could be located, which should be narrowed down to a preferred site as part of the study. My concern with that is we're gonna be given the Cadillac, we're gonna have sticker shock, this is gonna be put back on the shelf, nothing's gonna get done. I would propose changing wording on that to maybe having like 3 options. I mean, I don't know like how to word that, but maybe having a couple options instead of just one. I would hate to come back and they come up with a couple different ideas, but then they only deliver us one. You know, if they're gonna come up with multiple ideas, then I kinda wanna see all of them.
The term used a lot of this is in value engineering. You get a proposal, and when you get the sticker shock, there's a back to the drawing board of, okay, we understand that this was a want, but maybe not necessarily a need, and trying to, get that into within a budget that the city is comfortable with. My concern with bringing too many options is that it dilutes the work of the consultant as opposed to focus on here's what you need and a total cost of what this building is going to be. And then we come back and say, that's too many of this, too high in terms of dollars, and we need it to be more in line and work through that process. But I think there can be a little bit of an overwhelming fact of getting 3 or 4 scenarios in front of you and trying to figure out what's best there too. It can go either way. There's pluses and minuses to each side of it.
No, I'm great with what you're suggesting. I just don't see it in here, so we might want to include that in the RFP, that there may be a couple iterations, because then we don't have to have contract amendments in the future if they want to charge us more for further iterations.
Okay. Alder Gray.
So, I mean, that's partially what I was getting to of having our city-owned properties listed in there. We should simply be looking for what does the city actually need for our public safety building, and how much land, what does it take, to build it upon. We shouldn't be looking at properties we own. It shouldn't be part of the study. We should just be looking, so our city needs a fire station X size, a police station X size. If you combine them, they need to be X size, so you need X amount of land. And then maybe it fits on one of our parcels, maybe it doesn't. If we're giving them our parcels, this is what we want you to fit it on, then we're going to get responses back of, oh, this is what we can fit on here. It's not necessarily what we need. It might be more than we need. It might be less than we need, but it's going to be tailored to our parcels. That's the problem. They are going to, even if you say, or any other, they know, hey, the city has these two that they have earmarked that could possibly be something. We're going to tailor make something for these parcels, and that's not necessarily the best outcome. That's my problem.
My recommendation on this issue is that we tone down some of the language on the current sites, take the pictures out, and make it more, the city is looking for an ideal site. These are two sites that the city owns, but we are interested in making sure that we have a site that fits our needs and potentially acquiring a site, but we would like these two sites reviewed for viability. And just kind of tone the site analysis piece down and get more on the actually building design and focus on that.
Okay.
I just want to point out that I agree with that, because I think our business need and our problem we're trying to solve is the public safety building. It isn't how to fit the public safety building into a specific space. So
Right.
I get where you're going with this. And I think that you have great points as it comes from like putting on that. You don't want to tell suppliers and vendors how to do their job. You want to tell them what you need, and they're going to tell you the best way to meet your needs. So,
Exactly.
yes,
They just fit
I'm
what you
following you now,
Right.
and yes, it makes sense to me. I agree.
So you have your direction, what we need to have, so.
The only piece is, would you like this to come back at the 219 cow, or when I have the revisions made, sending that out? And I don't have a preference either way.
Can you do it by the 219 count?
I think so.
So,
Does this
Alder
need to
Finkel.
go to council to be approved? Because
I don't think so, because it's already approved in the budget.
There's also no requirement that an RFP has to be reviewed or approved. It's just a
Okay.
good practice to clue the decision body in on what the RFP is saying before it goes out.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just going to say, then I suggest you just make the updates and bring it to council if we have to approve it and skip another cow step. Especially because I think we said everything has to go to council that's on cow, so.
And technically, per ordinance, if it's on cow, it has to be.
Yeah,
forwarded to
so
council.
should we make the updates and then send it to council and deal with it there?
Per ordinance, technically.
Yeah.
Right, okay, then we'll move this forward to the 19th meeting, correct? Okay, item number 13, to discuss interim department head amendment to the policy and procedures manual. So again, Matt?
Yeah, this would just outline a standard practice for when there's a department head vacancy that the city administrator and human resources administrator would determine who would serve as the interim department head, and they would receive a 10% increase in their established salary for the time they serve as that interim. And we drafted this as just an amendment to the city's personnel policies and procedures handbook that I know needs some larger work and revision, but I wanted to move this forward.
Okay. Alder Modaff.
I think this is a no-brainer. I think we need to move it forward.
Alder Gray?
While I think having an established policy is extremely important, I'm not educated enough on everyone's salary to know if 10% is the right number or if it's always going to be the right number. Like some departments, the person just under a department head makes very close to the same, so 10% would be above what the department head salary would typically be. Some departments, a 10% bump could be still not even half what the department head would be. Like, should there be a specific number, or should it be up to the discretion of the administrator and mayor, like, I'm more of a discretionary guy because I don't think there is one number that's gonna fit every scenario. It's my only.
Alder Finkler.
If I remember correctly, the reason why this is brought up is so we don't have to keep bringing it back to council every single time, right? So I agree with Ian, like putting it in there solid that 10% may not be the correct answer, but I would like to have it where it can be delegated to somebody other than council, so these just don't keep coming back to us constantly. And another concern is that they're closed sessions when they come back originally to discuss. And I know there's been a lot of scrutiny by constituents on all the closed sessions that we have. So if it's something that can be handled internally with the city administrator and HR, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
Anything further?
exactly where I was going for. I think maybe we have a parameter of like not, if it exceeds whatever percentage, like 25%, then it must go to council. Otherwise, it's up to the discretion of the administrator and mayor or whomever should be making that decision. I just, 10% may or may not be right.
An editorial comment would be is if we have our wage scale right, what you pointed out should not be an issue, but it is
now.
currently, and that's, yeah.
Okay. So you have the guidance.
Correct.
To adjust it, so we can move this forward to the next meeting, so, all right, very good. Okay, discuss the fee schedule updates.
Crystal's here tonight. There's a number of changes from the adopted fee schedule that have been identified. Crystal's worked on this and has pulled all that together. It's basically editorial and just catching some mistakes is ultimately, and some omissions. Crystal is here and can answer any specific questions, but that's the general gist of this one.
Does anybody have any questions on the information for Crystal or Matt? Ian?
Is there anything of note that you want to make us aware of? Because I'm going to admit, I do not know our fee schedule by heart, so any changes I wouldn't pick up on readily. Like, is there something big that we should be looking at?
This was all minimal.
Okay.
Just fixing $1 amount that didn't get adjusted and some duplications. Something within two places that was correct here and not correct there. These are very small items that we're talking about. Anything larger is we're going to handle separately down the
Okay.
road. We're looking at the bigger stuff. So
Okay.
this is all facility stuff.
Okay,
That
perfect.
needs to be corrected.
Thank you.
Any other further questions on this? So move it forward. Should have a stamp that says move forward. Okay, discuss moving the committee of the whole council meeting before the regular meeting. Again, this is just, for discussion. We don't necessarily need to move this forward, but, to have a good discussion on. Part of it, talking with certain staff members and would just be it's not to take away discussion, because anything that obviously we would have to have further discussion on, we can still move, to have further discussion on, but it may help to streamline some things. Matt, if you have something that you wanted to further say on this.
Yeah, the thing I'd add is that when Chris Schwartz was interim, I know he raised this concern. I know when Lisa came on board, she raised the concern. When I came on board, I've not seen this process before. And I think what I'm willing to do is work with staff to kind of poll neighboring communities and what their process is and provide that for a future meeting to help the decision process. But I think there is a more effective and efficient way to carry out the business of the council than the current format.
I'm not sure who had
I
their
think
light.
Alder Reed.
Alder Reed?
I would be strongly against having the cow right before the regular meeting. Although it would be streamlined, I feel like we would lose so much in the time we have to think and consider and even research things. I'm really afraid what that would do to our transparency with the public of having things happen so fast and no time for our community to react. I'm just strongly against it.
Okay, Alder Gray.
Honestly, very much the same sentiment as Alder Reed. I think there are so many times where we discuss something in the committee of the whole that even like Alder Finkler and I rarely agree on things, but sometimes sometimes we do, and sometimes something she says makes me think of something differently.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily prepared to make a finite vote on it 5 minutes later at the regular council meeting. Sometimes I need some time to regurgitate. I think we can do a special cow before our council meeting for things that need to be expedited, and we do that on a pretty common basis, honestly. Like, it's a pretty regular occurrence. And I think having that ability, it eliminates the need for our cow to be ahead of time. And especially since, like, technically things aren't allowed to be reintroduced for at least 30 days in the same manner without a majority vote, a 2/3 vote, actually, I think it is per ordinance. But so, like, if we can't reintroduce something and we're going to vote on it right away, now it's just done and it's finite, it's over, and we might not have had time. We might not have had time to listen to the citizens because they probably didn't hear about it until the meeting, or, you know, like, I like our current setup.
Alder Motive.
I know that a lot of other cities do it differently. They do the cow first and then they do the council. I reiterate what the other two alders have said. I think it gives our citizens more time to do research and reflect. It also gives them time to watch it if they're not able to be here, and then do a little research and come back at the council meeting if they want to make comments. And I know there are plenty of times when, like Alder Gray said, I'll be listening to another alder, something they say makes sense, or it triggers something that I want to research. And I think it just takes away from that time. I feel pretty strongly we should leave it as is.
Okay, Alder Finkler.
I totally get what everybody's saying, and I'm always for streamlining and trying new things and seeing if things can be better. I think I don't have, I'm not commenting against her for whatever. I just would be curious what the standard practice is. Like, does the league have a recommendation on standard practice, or just no? Okay. And they're polling other cities. I would be curious what the pros and cons are for it. Sorry not to go down the options paper route, but it would be really interesting to know what the pros and cons are, because I do agree with the issues of, I'm really worried about us talking about something at COW and 10 minutes later having to make a decision on it. I like that week. But if we're talking about, are we talking about doing the COW before the council in case we have something to rush, but everything else is going to go to the following week? If that's the case, that would be really confusing too. You know what I mean? So I'm open to any options and feedback from other cities, but I just don't want us to have to not have that week, because I want a week to reach out to my constituents.
Alder Steiner.
I think the way we have it set up is actually pretty decent. It opens things up, and if there's an issue with expediting certain topics that we're discussing on the COW, maybe they don't all need to go to the COW. I mean, some things are just standard procedures we do every year. It's but there's never been a discussion on it. Do we need that full discussion 2 weeks later, another vote on it? We could just take it regular to common council. But as we've had tonight, a lot of discussion back and forth, and then we'd have to go to a common council. It's well, we're not deciding anything then. We just agreed upon it, and it has a whole bunch of minor things that need to be adjusted and then come back to common council. This just makes it so we have that time frame to say, oh, I didn't think of it this way, or somebody said something, maybe think something different. Maybe you have a different option, as opposed to just forcing everything through in one night. And it seems, like I said, lack of transparency to the situation. Not everyone can see these things in the immediate, and all of a sudden everything's passed through because it came up one day and it's already done. So certain things probably don't even need to be on the cow all the time. I'm not sure. I don't know the ordinance and statutes to these things, but for the most part, the way we're doing it makes more sense to me. And as government goes, it's always cumbersome to get anything done. It's just the way things have to be so everyone can have a chance to see what it is that's going on within their government and elected bodies.
Well, this is good. I mean, this is kind of what I was looking for, for discussion wise. I mean, as you said, if there is something that is critical, we can have a special cow before and handle it that way. So, Attorney Johnson.
Yep, I was just gonna add, your ordinance as currently drafted says all matters.
Yeah.
So regardless of how mundane or traditional,
Everything goes to the cow.
everything goes to the cow.
And everything that's on the cow is technically goes to the next regularly scheduled council meeting unless it is tabled or.
In one way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. Yes.
That is.
Okay.
That is our ordinance.
Right. I mean, nothing has to be done with this item other than, again, it was just for discussion purposes and such.
Not to be difficult, but I'm a rule follower. So does that mean we have to send this to next council to
Unless
say
you
we're,
table it, technically, yes.
well, we don't make motions in cow?
You can.
Or can we all agree, we
We can all agree to
table this
table.
then? So it doesn't have to go to
And you can't
council?
make a
Or-
motion to table it. You
yeah.
can't make a motion in the cow. It's just most things don't require a motion because per ordinance, things are automatically elevated to the common council. So
Okay.
if you are allowing it to go to the council, no motion is needed. Oh, sorry. But if you don't want it to go to the council, technically a motion is needed.
Okay, I move to table, discussing moving the committee of the whole council meeting before the regular meeting from going to the council meeting. I'm sure I said that weird.
I'll second to table the discussion on the order of the committee of the whole and the common council meetings.
Okay.
Worded a little bit more eloquently.
Good. So, motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Gray to table the process of committee of the whole in regular meeting process as discussed. So, any further discussion, which I'm assuming not. So, how do we do this for a vote? Just all in favor? Okay.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. So next on the agenda would be number 16, which is to convene to close session per 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility for purposes of considering an adjustment of compensation of certain employees in relation to other city employees. Specifically, the positions of DPW Administrator Assistant, Deputy Treasurer, Police Department Administrative Manager, Recreation Director, HR Administrator, City Clerk, and Assistant City Administrator. This meeting then will not convene to open session.
Alder Motif will make a motion to convene to close session per 19851C.
I want to amend.
Gray second. Oh, okay, Gray
Yeah.
second.
I can amend right now,
Well, you
right?
can have discussion and then she can.
Yeah, we have the motion by
okay.
Alder Motif and a second by Alder
So then I'll
Gray to go
discussion.
into closed session 19.851C.
So
So
there's,
discussion,
am I good?
yeah.
I didn't want, okay. I didn't want to cut off the mayor. I don't believe the 2024 action plan should be included in the closed session, so I think that should be removed. That's on the last page. Well, no, sorry, second to last page.
Again, just to clarify, I sent that out to the council just for your purview. I think all we're talking about in the closed session tonight are wages of the positions listed in the
Okay.
closed session description.
Okay, so as long as we don't talk about the 2024 action plan and remove that from it, I am good.
I have I was going to say, I have no problem with
I've told,
Pat Gable if she wishes
Oh.
to leave for the evening. I mean,
Like it was not an option.
so after roll call, you're gonna leave. Okay, so can we, all right. So can we have a roll call on this, please?
Hammer,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive, Reed,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Motion carries.